is Alex, and I'm Ellen. Last year, Alex decided to buy a boat and begin his dream of sailing around the world. As a 17-year-old Aussie who knew nothing about sailing, I dropped it all to come join him. Follow us through the hardships and the joy as we try to discover all the beautiful hidden places this world has to offer. We left the last episode off in Sicily. Before heading on, Alex went into town and did some grocery shopping. This had been the first day in which we had good winds along the Sicilian coast, and we were intending on using it well. We sailed 65 nautical miles through the Lipari Islands to Milazzo. The waves were a decent size, but since they were quite long, it wasn't uncomfortable, and in certain moments it actually made us faster. The Lipari Islands are quite active, and I'm sure you guys have all heard of Stromboli. And as we were passing, there always seemed to be at least one of them producing a bit of gas. He's firing up. There's Stromboli behind. This one's called Vulcano. This one's Lipari. We got that one, and there's two over here. Volcano Islands. The weather has calmed down, hasn't it?
Yeah. Actually, I would prefer it. Says as if it's overheating.
Yeah.
Wow.
The next day we basically got no wind, but it didn't bother us too much in this case because we had to go through the Sicilian Strait, which is quite narrow and can be quite busy. Bye bye Sicily.
Waves from yesterday are now almost completely gone.
I know. There are pretty much no good anchorages in this area, but because it was so flat, we just chose a random anchorage on Navili and went there. It's also worth mentioning that we were in almost all of the anchorages completely alone.
To celebrate this moment, the first time in the history of Alucine bread making, the bread has risen. It literally is because of the yeast. We always had rotten yeast apparently. We got new yeast. And we're gonna have bread tomorrow for our passage. It literally brings me joy. Doesn't it bring you joy?
Yeah, it does. Especially because it's good tasting bread.
Don't squash it too much. Joy. Joy. This is what I'm talking about. What do you have to say for yourself?
Good bread.
We had originally planned to go from Bova directly to Loika to get shelter from a pretty big low pressure that was coming in a few days. But during the first night we got some pretty strong headwind.
You wanna make a video from outside?
Indeed.
The pretty strong headwinds that we got at night made some pretty uncomfortable waves and just an all-around sleepless night spent at the wheel. So at about 5 in the morning, we decided to look for the nearest anchorage and wait out the wind. We've been going for about 50 nautical miles. We started at 8 a.m. and now it's 5 p.m. Yeah, just hoping that we get consistent wind for the night. It likes to be a bit gusty. We're sailing with a double reefed main and also Genoa because for a while there we had about almost 30 knots in gusts. But yeah, it's getting a bit colder now.
Yeah.
So after spending 4 hours in the anchorage waiting out the wind, we were off again for another sleepless night. Loika had some attractive aspects and some not so attractive aspects, but what was really nice is that we got to meet up with Michael, Alex's friend with the catamaran.
Falling down and rising up, reach the clouds in a state of flux, rolling through the sky, I forget the faces. Do you ever wonder why we try to find these places? Hold my hand and call on my name, we'll go to a land where our hearts can stay. I can see you falling, reaching for a grip, come with me, I'm rising and I'll never let you slip, no.
So once the wind and the weather was favorable enough again, we were off.
Baby, I'm hollow, found peace in a
Does.
bottle. Can't tell you the sorrows inside of my head. I see you tomorrow, I hide all my problems. I never like.
There was a free dock at Brindisi in the middle of town that we decided to go to, and that's probably one of the highlights of this coast actually. It was the first time in a long time that we weren't in an Anchorage.
Dreams I would die for, and not for all the people I hate. Cause I'm alone and nobody else knows it. I pour a glass of whiskey so I don't have to show it. And I got pain and nobody else knows.
Brindisi was a beautiful town, and so even though we were only there for one night, we made sure to look around.
I fake the smiling, but there's a lot of things that nobody knows. And I don't recommend you prying about things you don't know. Baby, I'm hollow, I finished the bottle. I still got these sorrows inside of my head. Won't see you tomorrow, I think it's a.
Join us next time as we continue along the Italian coast and make our way to Venice.